to get the audio.
Hi, I'm Karen Atlas. I have two questions. One is, I just want to hear you talk about how you're seeing involving the community in this outside of the arts community, and ways to get audiences involved, and also some people use their theaters as community meeting spaces too, so the way to broaden the argument so it doesn't seem so art-centric. So that's one thing. And the other one is for Jeremy about, I'm really intrigued with this notion of these moments of opportunity and these targets. And so where do you see coming up for these issues, the moment of convergence of a moment of opportunity, and who should be targeted in that moment? Just a little more specifically.
I guess I'll take the second question first. The windows on the city council are kind of as follows. You have a very brief window, kind of after the budget is passed. The city budget by law is enacted by the end of June. It's never late, can't be late. We're not the state, we're the city. We don't have that luxury to be late on the city budget. Kind of what happens is they do a little work in July. Summer, they're not as active, right? There's the July 4th holiday, people take vacations. So then real windows are in the fall. I don't have the calendar in front of me. There's some holidays like Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur that affect this. There's Labor Day. So when you look in the calendar, you plot the dates in the calendar. You get a couple weeks, maybe 3, maybe 4 weeks, usually around September, October. Then you hit Thanksgiving and Christmas. Not a high peak opportunity for the city council. Frankly, probably not a peak opportunity for folks to engage city council either, as just as the council members and their staff are traveling to and fro for the holidays. Frankly, many of us are as well. Then you get an opportunity in February, and a little bit in March, but then you kind of close back up into that budget process. So those are really your peaks, and there might be an opportunity here or there, a couple days, but it's kind of generally speaking, and that's kind of true regardless of what whatever the issue that you're working on. So that's why it's so important to then be thinking about, of those windows, kind of which is a peak time in terms of organizing and mobilizing your constituency. And I don't know enough about the rhymes and the rhythm of this community, but there maybe are times when it's like high theater season, right? And I don't kind of know enough about the intricacies that, for whatever reason, it's not a real opportunity to kind of mobilize, the direct constituency. But you kind of want to overlay those kind of timelines, and then you really realize that you have, basically 2 maximum weeks in the whole year where you can move it. Once you kind of take everything out and look at kind of what's going on in your industry. And it's not to say that you don't do anything up to that point. You really need to constantly doing things and laying the groundwork and meet elected officials, but you want to be building your strength and your power. And then the last thing I would say on this is it's so important to remember that this is a city of 5 boroughs. It's not just Manhattan. And to expand the networks into the outer boroughs is critical. To the extent that this is perceived, or anything is perceived as a Manhattan issue, it becomes perceived as, frankly, kind of an elite issue, an issue of the elite. And this is, the people in this room know the theater that you work in, and it's not quite the same dynamics and economics as Broadway. But for those who aren't involved in the theater, who don't go to the theater, to them it might all kind of be the same. So you want to broaden this out, and I think, Karen, you're right about talking about the other aspects beyond just the theater, the kind of roles that these spaces play in the community as community hubs is so important. And to be talking about this outside of Manhattan or above 96th Street is critical. And to be talking about this in a way that kind of reflects the diversity of the city, it's why you want to get engaged. Some of the theater companies that have a presence in the boroughs that are producing an array of culturally diverse plays, whether it be the theater, the National Black Theater in Harlem, which I know is under struggles, or those type of spaces as well, that kind of expands your opportunities of engaging elected officials that have different concerns. And one key thing here that people should remember, while the mayor is obviously from Manhattan, the speaker of the city council, who's historically a tremendous supporter of the arts, from Chelsea and in the Village, and has Broadway and all that in her district. And for full disclosure, I worked for her for 7.5 years, and she considered a deep and dear personal friend, and she's fantastic. There are lots of other elected officials, and the chair of the Cultural Affairs Committee of the City Council, Jimmy Van Bramer, is from Queens. And that's important to bear in mind. The chair of the Finance Committee, who's going to have a real say in this, Dominic Recchia, is from Coney Island. So you need to always be thinking about how to expand this out beyond the initial, immediate kind of Manhattan focus. And that's just really, really key. And then there's other members that are so important. Brad Lander in Park Slope, who is a tremendous supporter of zoning issues and progressive politics in the city. He's key. He's Park Slope. So you have supporters all over the city that you want to be sure that you're touching, because to the extent this becomes interpreted as a Manhattan issue or an issue for the Manhattan theaters, you're not going to go very far, because there's a lot of other parts of the city and communities that need to be addressed. And frankly, as I think David mentioned, there are theater spaces all over the city. I mean, 13 in Staten Island, you have Snug Harbor Cultural Center, all that in Staten Island. You have these pockets, Long Island City, Williamsburg, growing arts in Bushwick. You know where these facilities and these spaces are much better than I do. We need to be expanding out those networks. Sorry to get a little long-winded on that.
No, and also, can you just quickly explain what happens if we get the city council on board? What's the next step?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of mechanics, the steps, kind of how a bill becomes a law. I'm not going to do a song, but everybody remembers that there's a special, which I just saw again. Every time I stumble upon it, I always watch it. Maybe I'm a little of a policy or geek in that respect. You need to find somebody to sponsor it and introduce it. You need to know what the idea is. You need to design it, and there needs to be legislation written. Then there needs to be a member to endorse it. Then you need to build out the co-sponsors. Then it moves to hearings. All legislation in the city council is 2 hearings. And they really happen, and that input is really important. So then you want to be sure that you organize and you have your networks in place so that you can have people not just testify at the hearing on a substance level, but to show strength in numbers, to make a presence. You want to be having a media component of this to keep moving that agenda forward. Go through 1 hearing, then it goes through a second hearing, then it gets voted on by the city council. As you're playing the politics and navigating the politics of the city council, you need to be dealing with the other branch of government, the mayor. You need to be engaging him. You need to be engaging the mayor himself, Deputy Mayor Goldsmith. There's like 4 deputy mayors in the city. Department of Cultural Affairs. There's real folks here that are important, that have a lot of influence. But you want the mayor to sign it, and you want it to be enacted. But for an issue of a tax abatement, or a tax credit for that matter, whatever tax relief you're talking about, there's a state piece of this. The city does not have sole authority over its tax base. The only thing the city can do in terms of taxes is lower or raise, right, funny how I mentioned, forget raise, property taxes. That's the only tax the city has sole authority over. All other taxes require state action. So fundamentally what you're going to need to do is pass what's called a home rule message, which is something that the city passes asking the state to enact legislation to do whatever it is that you want to get done. You got to do it for any issue that affects the tax base. So there's actually now a state component. You have to navigate those relationships, and the state is its own beast with the Assembly and the Senate, and Democrats in the Assembly, Republicans in the Senate, and a governor. So there's lots of different layers. It's all negotiable and navigable. A couple years ago, probably more like, I guess the process actually started on the city council, a film production tax credit, which people might have heard of. And people remember the 90s, the runaway productions. Films were leaving New York City, right? The last galvanizing blow was some awful movie about Giuliani. The movie's awful, I won't editorialize on Mayor Giuliani. Was actually filmed in Vancouver, right? So here's this, it was crazy, right? So the city did a lot of work to pass a film production tax credit. The state enacted it. It's been a tremendous success. Film production in the city of New York is at an all-time high, something that my firm has been very involved with. It's been a real success. So this is able to happen. It's happened before. It's happened before on cultural production that has an economic benefit to the city. Film has an economic benefit. Theater has an economic benefit. So I don't want people to be daunted by the layers of government and the layers of elected officials. It is all possible and doable, but you really need to be having broad-based support and keeping track of that calendar. And Karen, the calendar I mentioned was for the city council. The calendar in Albany is a little bit different. And those holidays are really, really tricky to negotiate, particularly in Albany. As everybody knows, Shelley Silver is the Speaker of the Assembly, and he's quite religious, particularly on the Jewish calendar. So nothing, probably less happens in Albany during the Jewish holidays than frankly probably in the city.
Looks like we have another question.
My name is Christine Berthet. Do you think you should engage the real estate community?
Absolutely, Christine. I also want to point out that Christine is a member of Community Board 4 and is head of our Transportation Committee, and she's done incredible things for the City of New York in her capacity, so thank you for coming, Christine. You're absolutely right, and to tell you the truth, you know, efforts have been, more serious efforts I need to take to engage the Real Estate Board of New York. Yeah, yes. Yeah, we do have members who are members of the Real Estate Board, but we actually believe that landlords are going to love this. I mean,
it seems that the study you are doing of quality, if you can demonstrate the increase in value of the property by the presence or of a, you know, I mean, because this would be the key people which could be against that.
yeah, we actually think, I mean, you're right. We need to investigate that angle because they are key players, and we are going to be reaching out to our contacts. Again, if you know of any contacts on the Real Estate Board, you know, let us know, talk to us. But yes, that is a very important component because the actual legislation about, you know, the exact numbers, the dollar figures that we're talking about have not been, you know, there's going to be a formula involved about what it's going to actually take to incentivize a landlord to take advantage of this program. Because, you know, it might, a dollar for dollar, he might do it, maybe not. Maybe it needs to be 2 for 1. We don't know. That's what needs to be worked out when you actually draft the legislation. I do want to bring up a small point. I don't know if anybody read the Post today, but they had a cover story, and I thought it was phenomenal, about property taxes being paid by the richest condo buildings in the city of New York, 740, what is it, 740? Right, you know, Jeremy, Jeremy, you look rich. Okay, so, no, the deal is that the richest residential condo building in New York City is paying property taxes on a valuation that is what like a 5-story walk-up is paying, right, you know, 10 blocks away. We're talking about a valuation for, I think they're valued at $62 million, where each individual apartment sells for $30 million. So the idea is that the city of New York we could probably, just by being fair, probably come up with enough dollars to do our test pilot program for $3 to $5 million. You know, I'm just saying there are inequities in the system, and that's part of how the city has to work. The city has to, you know, resolve these inequities. Just be fair, and you know, we might find some income streams that we didn't know about before.
So just real quickly on that, one thing that the parks advocates in the city have done a phenomenal job, and New York Crystal Parks is a phenomenally effective organization in the city who really advocate for support of the parks, which I'm sure everybody in this room agrees with. They've done really, just kind of getting to that point that was just made, they've done a really effective job